Number 5.
Zombieville USA 3D is a top-down arcade shooter created with Unreal Engine 5.3. On first glance, you really wouldn't be able to tell that this game was made with Unreal, and the developer applied many different techniques to make it look more vibrant and stylized. But it does in fact even make use of Lumen for global illumination and reflections. In a video on his YouTube channel, the developer explains how he paints the textures for these characters and also goes into detail on how he uses a mix between a lit and unlit shading model to keep the cartoony look. But as opposed to being completely unlit, this also allows the materials to be influenced by lights and shadows in the scene. This can be achieved by simply using a lit material as the base and also plugging the base color into the emissive color with a multiplier below 0. And this is actually exactly what the developers of Live Alive also did for their character sprites in darker areas such as caves. Zombieville 3D was Mika Mobile's first title created with Unreal Engine and also his first game targeting PC, but he created many other games in the past for mobile which you've probably at least heard of, such as Battleheart, Lost Frontier, and of course Zombieville USA 1 and 2. For the majority of his games, he does the bulk of the programming, game design and asset creation by himself, but also gets help from his family and friends for some additional assets and playtesting. For Zombieville 3D specifically, his dad composed the music, his wife modeled the cars around town, and one of his friends put a bunch of time into helping him playtest. And in total, developing this game took roughly 1.5 to 2 years. Zombieville 3D actually started out as a Unity project, but while working a job as a VFX artist that required him to use Unreal, Mika Mobile fell in love with Niagara and Unreal's lighting and decided to port the project over. Even though Zombieville isn't one of those genres that typically do well on Steam, it did perform amazingly well both in terms of reception and also commercially.
Number 4.
Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is a turn-based RPG which I'm pretty sure you've heard countless stories about at this point. But since it technically is an indie game made with Unreal Engine 5 and became the highest rated game of all times on Metacritic, it would be pretty weird to not at least mention it in this video series. The French developer Sandful Interactive consists of roughly 33 core members, but looking at the credits of Expedition 33, there are 403 roles mentioned, including voice actors, marketers, and quality assurance staff. So this game definitely isn't indie in the same way as one person just downloading Unreal and trying their best, but it did actually have very humble beginnings and did start as a solo project initially funded through private savings, and only grew in scope over the years, with the director bringing in former co-workers from Ubisoft and other people they found on forums online. They spent about 1 year using Unreal Engine 4 and Real Illusion's character creator to put together a demo, which they used to look for voice actors and investors. They later on made the move over to Unreal Engine 5, Lumen, Nanite, and MetaHumans, which allowed them to streamline the development process. And finding ways to save time was extremely important for such a relatively small team taking on this ambitious of a project. In an interview on the Unreal Engine blog, they also mentioned how during early development, the vast majority of the game was made with blueprints, so the programmers could cooperate better with game designers. And only after bringing 3 more programmers onto the team later on did they move more things over to C++. They would often update to new Unreal versions during development and made usage of a lot of Unreal features, old and new, such as meta sounds, the sequencer, PSO pre-caching, Niagara, Lumen, and Nanite. By the way, if you want to know how to create turn-based RPGs by yourself in Unreal Engine 5, I'm currently developing a full 2.5D JRPG course with turn-based combat. And you can join my newsletter from the link in the description to get a discount code when the course launches, hopefully later this year. On top of that, you'll also get instant access to my 2.5D top-down template for Unreal Engine 5.
Number 3.
Trickshot Simulator is a simple physics-based game in which you perform trick shots in various scenarios. It was created by 2 first-time game developers from Japan using Unreal Engine and performed much better than they expected, selling over an estimated 20,000 units to date. Even though the developers failed to reach a large audience through their own social media accounts, Trickshot Simulator was covered by multiple gaming news outlets and was played by many streamers and YouTubers from both Japan and the Western world. These content creators showing the game to millions of potential buyers led to some conversions, which then in turn made the Steam algorithm push the game in front of even more players' eyes. And it's the perfect example of how to use the audience of an existing creator to market your game instead of trying to build up your own following.
Number 2.
Self-Checkout Unlimited is a philosophical walking simulator borrowing a vaporwave aesthetic created with Unreal Engine 4.24. I came across it after I finished playing Broken Reality and was looking for more vaporwave or liminal space themed games. It has a rather short runtime of roughly 1 hour and was created by a small team of 3 core developers, with some outsourcing work from voice actors, musicians, and an artist for promotional material. This game was actually a big departure for Argent Games, since most of their other titles appear to be visual novels made with Ren'Py. Considering that, an estimated gross revenue of roughly $16,000 and above 3,000 units sold on Steam is quite impressive. And on top of that, it's also available on itch.io, where it got a lot of positive feedback in the comments.
Number 1.
Coral Island is a cozy farming simulator created with Unreal Engine 4. It was heavily inspired by the Harvest Moon series and Stardew Valley, but what sets it apart are the influences from Southeast Asian culture, the Disney-esque art style, and a strong focus on dating elements. Coral Island was hugely successful on Kickstarter, raising $1.6 million off their $70,000 goal. And on top of that, they also managed to receive an epic mega grant, allowing the Indonesian indie studio Stairway Games to grow to 127 team members. In a developer interview on the Unreal Engine blog, one of the co-founders mentions how important blueprints were for quick prototyping and fast iteration, how they made heavy usage of the profiler to optimize the game for multiple platforms, and how updating to newer Unreal Engine versions during development was rather painless for them, usually only taking about 1 week. The game was in a pretty rough state during early access all the way throughout the 1.0 release, but after many patches, it's now sitting at a very positive rating and an estimated gross revenue of over $15 million on Steam alone. And that's it for this week. As always, a huge thanks to my patrons and YouTube members.